Good morning, dear students. Today in this video lecture, I shall discuss Unit 1, that is Nature of Inductive Inquiry. And the topics is induction and its different kinds. So already we have studied in HS first year course what is the subject matter of logic, what is reasoning, what is deductive reasoning, what is inductive reasoning. So in this chapter, we shall discuss inductive reasoning or induction and its different kinds. So now question, what is induction? So induction is the process of inferring a general or universal proposition on the basis of particular facts of experience. For example, Ram is mortal, Sham is mortal, Jadu is mortal, Madhu is mortal, therefore all men are mortal. So here in this example, the first four premises are called particular facts of experience, and the last one, that is all men are mortal conclusion, is called a general proposition. So it is experienced that Ram, Sham, Jadu and Madhu died, and on the basis of this experience we may conclude that all men are mortal is inferred. So now, what are the characteristics of induction? If we analyze the nature of induction, we get three characteristics. First one, the aim of induction is to establish a general real proposition. So its conclusion must be always more general than the premises. The second one, the premises in induction, the premises are collected by observation. And the third one, the conclusion of an induction is both formally and materially true. Now, different kinds of induction. The aim of induction is to establish a general real proposition on the ground of observation of particular facts. Thus, in induction, we are to jump from particular to general, from observed to unobserved, from known to unknown, from some to all. This jump is called inductive leap, which is the very essence of induction. And on the basis of this inductive leap, according to Mill, induction is broadly classified into two types: induction proper and induction improperly so called. So now question, what is induction proper? Induction proper is that kind of induction where there is an inductive leap, that is, in which a general proposition is established on the basis of observation of particular facts. And what is induction improperly so called? Induction improperly so called is that type of induction where there is no inductive leap, that is, in which there is no inductive leap, that is, in which a general proposition is not established on the basis of particular facts of experience, particular facts, observation of particular facts. So now, induction proper is of three kinds: scientific induction, unscientific induction, and analogy. Again, induction improperly so called is of three kinds: perfect induction, parity of reasoning, and colligation of facts. Although induction is divided into two, that is induction proper and induction improperly so called, but in this chapter we shall discuss only induction proper. So now question, what is induction proper? Induction proper is that kind of induction where there is an inductive leap, that is, in which a general proposition is established on the basis of observation of particular facts. And induction proper is of three kinds: scientific induction, unscientific induction, and analogy. Now question, what is scientific induction? Scientific induction is the establishment of a general real proposition. General real proposition on the basis of particular instances in reliance on the principle of the uniformity of nature and the law of causation. For example, all men are mortal. So now, what are the characteristics of scientific induction? So if we analyze the nature of scientific induction, we get some characteristics. Number one, scientific induction establishes a general real proposition. Number two, scientific induction is based on observation of particular instances. And number three, scientific induction relies on the principle of the uniformity of nature and the law of causation. So now, here one question, that is, what is the principle of the uniformity of nature and what is the law of causation? The principle of the uniformity of nature means nature behaves in the same way. Nature repeats itself. And the law of causation states that every event must have a cause. So scientific induction relies on the principle of the uniformity of nature and the law of causation. And on the basis of these two principles, that is the principle of the uniformity of nature and the law of causation, is the most important for scientific induction. Now, what is unscientific induction? Unscientific induction is the establishment of a general real proposition on the basis of mere uncontradicted experience without any attempt at establishing a causal connection. For example, all crows are black. So, all crows are black. So here, so far as our experience goes, we have seen only black crows. We have not seen any other color crows. So on the basis of this uniform experience or uncontradicted experience, we may conclude or we may arrive at the general proposition that is all crows are black. So next, what are the characteristics of unscientific induction? So if we analyze the nature of unscientific induction, we get some characteristics. Number one, unscientific induction establishes a general real proposition. Number two, unscientific induction is based on observation of particular facts of experience. Number three, in unscientific induction, there is an inductive leap. And number four, in unscientific induction, the generalization is made on the basis of mere uniform or uncontradicted experience. Number five, unscientific induction is not based on the law of causation. Law of causation, that means every event must have a cause. And the last one, the conclusion of unscientific induction is always probable or only probable, not certain. So these are the characteristics of unscientific induction. the last kind of induction proper, that is analogy. So analogy is a kind of induction in which, on the basis of observation of resemblance in some particular properties between two things, and we may say among the different kinds of induction proper, analogy is one kind of induction proper. Analogy is generally defined is analogy is a kind of induction proper in which the conclusion is established on the basis of observation of imperfect similarity between two things. For example, the planet Earth and Mars are resembled to each other in respect of soil, water, temperature, movement, etc. In the planet Earth, there is life. Therefore, we may conclude that the planet Mars has life. That means, in analogy, there are two imperfect similarities. There are imperfect similarities between two things. Here, the planet and the Mars. So, next topics is the next topics is the relation between scientific induction and unscientific induction. So, relation, that means similarities between scientific induction and unscientific induction. So here we get three similarities or three relation between scientific induction and unscientific induction. So number one, both scientific induction and unscientific induction establish general real proposition. And number two, both scientific induction and unscientific induction are based on observation of facts. And number three, in both the kinds of induction, there is an inductive leap. That is, we are to jump from observed to unobserved, from known to unknown, from particular to general, from some to all. So these are the three similarities between scientific and unscientific induction. Now the difference between scientific induction and unscientific induction. Difference means dissimilarities. So here we get some dissimilarities between scientific induction and unscientific induction. That is, number one, scientific induction is based on two kinds of observation, that is, observation and experiment. But unscientific induction is based on simple observation only, not an experiment. Number two, scientific induction is grounded on the principle of the uniformity of nature and the law of causation, whereas unscientific induction is grounded on mere uniform or uncontradicted experience. And number three, the process of scientific induction is complex as it involves observation, formation of hypothesis, generalization, and verification. But the process of unscientific induction is simple. And the last difference between scientific induction and unscientific induction is the conclusion of scientific induction is certain as it is based on the law of causation, but there is no attempt to establish a causal connection in unscientific induction. So its conclusion is always probable only, not certain. So these are the four differences between scientific induction and unscientific induction. So next topics is, so Already I have said the general definition of analogy, but analogy is defined in different ways by different logicians. But according to Mill, analogy is the two things resemble each other in one or more respects. A certain proposition is true of the one, therefore, it is true of the other. So, analogies example. Already I've given the example. The planet Earth and Mars are resembled to each other in respect of soil, water, temperature, movement, etc. In the planet Earth, there is life. Therefore, we may conclude that the planet Mars has life. So, characteristics of analogy. If we analyze the nature of analogy, we get some characteristics. So, first, analogy is a kind of inference in which we pass from particular to particular, not particular to general. That means in analogy we pass from particular proposition to another particular proposition. Number two, analogy is based on resemblance of certain properties between two things. This resemblance or similarity is imperfect. That is imperfect similarities between two things. And number three, analogy is not based on causal connection. So its conclusion is probable, not certain. In compare with scientific induction and unscientific induction, the conclusion of scientific induction is certain. The conclusion of unscientific induction is probable. Again, the conclusion of analogy is also probable. Number four, in analogy there is an inductive leap. As we pass from particular to general, observed to unobserved, known to unknown, and from some to all. So these are the characteristics of analogy. So these are three kinds of induction proper. The first, scientific induction, second, unscientific induction, and the third one, that is analogy. So we may studied the next, induction improperly so called. But in this chapter, only induction proper shall discussed. The next topics is the relation between analogy and scientific induction. Analogy and scientific induction. So if we analyze the nature of scientific induction and analogy, we see that analogy is a kind of induction in which, on the basis of observation of resemblance in some particular properties between two things. But scientific induction, on the other hand, is the establishment of a general real proposition based on the observation of particular instances in reliance on the principle of the uniformity of nature and the law of causation. So if we analyze these two definitions of analogy and scientific induction, we find only two similarities. Number one, both analogy and scientific induction are forms of induction proper. That means in both the forms of induction proper there is an inductive leap. And number two, both analogy and induction are based on observation. So both analogy and scientific induction is based on observation. Now, the dissimilarities, that is the differences between scientific induction and analogy. So if we analyze the nature of induction, scientific induction and analogy, we get some differences. The first one, in analogy we proceed from particular to general, while in scientific induction we proceed from particular to general. So what is? In analogy we should proceed from particular to particular, but in scientific induction it is proceed to particular to general. And number two, in analogy there is no knowledge of a causal connection, but scientific induction is based on the knowledge of a causal connection. And the number three, the conclusion of analogy is probable as it is based on the causal connection, but the conclusion of scientific induction is certain because it is based on causal connection. Now, there are some differences between scientific induction and analogy. So, yes, already I have said that. Now, analogy is of two kinds. One is good analogy, another is bad analogy. On the basis of the importance of the points of similarity, analogy is divided into two kinds. One is good analogy, another is bad analogy. So now question, what is good analogy? A good analogy is one in which a conclusion is drawn from the presence of essential resemblance between two things. So for example, Mars resembles the Earth in being planet, possessing similar atmosphere, land, seas, temperature, etc. The Earth is inhabited, therefore Mars is also inhabited. So this is the definition and example of good analogy. Now, bad analogy. A bad analogy is one in which the conclusion is drawn from superficial points of resemblance between two things. And the bad analogy is also called false analogy. For example, plants like man have birth, growth, and decay and death. Man possesses intelligence, therefore plants also possesses intelligence. Here there is no essential connection between the points of resemblance and the inferred quality. So it is a false or bad analogy. Next topic is similarities between analogy and unscientific induction. An analysis of the nature of analogy and unscientific induction, we get certain points of similarities and certain points of dissimilarities. So now similarities. Number one, both analogy and unscientific induction are two forms of induction proper. There is same form, that is induction proper. Number two, in both the forms there is an inductive leap. And number three, both analogy and unscientific induction are based on observation. Number three, both analogy and unscientific induction, there is no attempt to establish a causal connection. Number 5. The conclusion of both analogy and unscientific induction are probable. They are not based on causal connection. So these are the similarities. Now dissimilarities. In analogy, we pass from one particular to another particular. But in unscientific induction, we pass from particular to general. Number 2, the basis of analogy is imperfect similarity, while the basis of unscientific induction is uncontradicted experience, that is mere uniform. And the number 3, analogy deals with the connotation of a term. It increases our knowledge of the connotation of the term. But unscientific induction deals with the denotation of a term. It increases our knowledge of the denotation of term. And number 4, both the conclusions of analogy and unscientific induction are probable. Yet, the probability of analogical conclusion depends mainly on the number and importance of the known points of resemblance. In unscientific induction, the probability of the conclusion depends on the number of particular instances which are collected by observation of facts. Observation on the basis of uncontradicted experience. In unscientific induction, we simply count the instances, but in analogy, we weight their points of resemblance. That means induction proper is, and its different kinds has finished. So today's topics, that means induction and its different kinds, is over.